Hi, I'm Triona. I'm a Roofbreaker through the roof, and I'm also autistic. I found out that I was autistic when I was 21 and at university. So for me, my autistic experience can be split into these two separate camps: life before I knew I was autistic and life after I knew I was autistic. My experience before I knew I was autistic was that life was a lot more challenging and overwhelming than life after I've known my own neurology. And being able to have that self-awareness and a way of managing the world and just understanding more about how my brain works. As an autistic person, there are certain barriers in life, in society and in church that I experience, and many autistic people also experience. It can get a little bit complicated when you try and work it all out because every person's different and every autistic person is different. And so all of our experiences are different. There are things that we have in common that you may or may not be aware of. I'd say that two main barriers that we share, even if it works out in slightly different ways, are sensory barriers and social barriers. And those apply across church context and general wider society. An example of a sensory barrier that we can face can be noise. This can be the volume somewhere just being simply too loud music, shouting, stuff like that. It can also be layers of sound. So imagine you're in the hall after a church service. We've got coffee machines going, we've got crockery being rattled and shaken and dropped. There's lots of groups of people sat around drinking, chatting, multiple conversations all at once. You've got people coming in and out and doors making that noise that they make when they open and close. All these layers of sound can be quite difficult to filter out and regulate within an autistic brain. So walking into that environment can just be massively overwhelming and send us into sensory overload. Someone could be masking heavily, so using something like lip reading to understand what someone talking to them is saying and just sort of pretending that everything's okay when actually it's a hugely uncomfortable place to be in. Social barriers can be things like the size of a group that you're entering into. How well the people in that group know each other, if you know anyone well within that group. I often find that in one-to-one or sort of small groups of 3, I really thrive in conversation, especially if I'm comfortable with that person. But the larger the group, the more that barrier gets raised up and up, and the things I might find a bit challenging in a one-to-one conversation are suddenly multiplied with every person that's come into that group. So then, if you're anticipating that challenge, you can get quite anxious. You can get quite worried about events like that. You can wonder whether you're going to fit in and be part of the crowd and whether you're going to be accepted or if you're going to belong somewhere. You can imagine, if you take a minute, how this plays out in different church settings, in different Christian settings, and in the wider society and wider world. Because everywhere we go is a sensory environment, and many, many places that we go are social environments. Whilst there might be a lot of autistic people who are more introverted, it's a myth to say that autistic people just want to be on their own and don't want to be social. We want to belong just like everyone else. Having a Roofbreaker or a disability champion in your church can make a big difference, as it means there's someone to go to with any access issues. So if you're having difficulty with noise levels or bright lights, which can make it harder for an autistic individual to be in church, you can talk to them about it. You can find out about becoming a Roofbreaker on Through the Roof's website at www.throughtheRoof.org.